Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. So excited to have a special guest with us today. We have Dr. Angela Marick on the podcast. I'm going to read you her bio really quick so we can all get to know her. She coaches women leaders to transform their "this is nice" business into their red hot passion through radical self-love. Her background as a business owner, a chiropractor, an author, a life coach, and personal journey has given her an incredible experience to hold sacred space for her clients. Her background started out relatively traditionally with receiving a BS in nutrition from Cornell University in 1999 and went on to get her Doctor of Chiropractic degree in 2003 from Palmer College of Chiropractic, where she graduated valedictorian. She founded White Rose Family Chiropractic in 2010 and successfully sold the practice to her successor in April of 2019. In 2018, she authored a book called Beauty in the Brokenness, One Woman's Voice, which chronicled her journey with her late first husband's death, Josh. She traveled the world and has aspirations to raise the bar for women in business everywhere by owning her authentic wholeness. She currently resides in York, Pennsylvania, and enjoys life's twists and turns with her beloved husband. So welcome, Dr. Angela. We're so glad to have you here today.
Glad to be here too.
Thank you so much for taking the time, some time to spend with us. We know that you have a lot of things going on and you're helping lots of people. So we appreciate you just carving out a little bit of time for us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I mean, talking, with amazing women, and if any nugget that gets dropped today from our, coming together and help somebody else,
yeah,
it was always worth the time.
So the first thing I want to dive into is radical self-love. So It's not a new concept to me, but it might be a new concept to our listeners. Can you talk a little bit more about what the heck is radical self-love, and how did you come to this place where you decided that this was what you wanted to focus on?
Yeah. It came from my own journey and recognizing my own, I'm going to go as far to say as self-hatred. Everything was never good enough. I'm so good at loving others, but nothing to see over here, right? If I can just get the scraps. And the more I started to dive in, and, I have a conservative background, was good girl, went to church, all the things, the nice girl, role. And I remember hearing we should love others as we love ourselves. And it was always skipped over the love ourselves part, at least how I interpreted it. And the women I started seeing more and more, especially as a practicing chiropractic, is I would see so many women, incredible women such as yourselves, laying on my table and not knowing who they were, not feeling supported. And you're like, gosh, I see you have so many gifts and potential, and they weren't even able to own that. And I recognized I was also doing that myself. And when I started really investigating, then wow, it's a self-love thing. And of course, what does my ego brain want to say? Well, that's selfish, that's narcissistic, that's blah, 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 like judgment after judgment. I mean, it triggered a whole Pandora's box. And I'm like, oh, great. So I guess this is my work. Perfect. So I decided to kind of lean in and realized as if we're going to love others, and if you guys have read any of Brene Brown's books, right? I love The Gifts of Imperfection. We can't love others any more than we're willing to love ourselves. And as women, I believe in a more patriarchal society, as we are taught so much to just serve everybody else. We only get the scraps. And the thing is, I think when a woman fully loves herself, on a radical way, loves her humanness, her flaws, her power, her, all the things, literally the world transforms. It heals, it balances, it harmonizes. I'm getting goosebumps as I say it because this is my soapbox. You got me all started.
I know. It's I want to yes.
Yes. And Brene is a dear friend of ours. Actually, Elaine is certified in Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. We reference her all the time. So you are if for those of you who can't see us, who are just on the podcast, Elaine and I have the bobbleheads going. We're just
I'm getting the stamp of approval, I think, is what I was interpreting.
Yes.
But but this radical self-love concept is that when we have that as the keystone of that in all of our relationships, you know, in our relationships with ourselves, with our spouse, with our children, with our friends, with our parents, with our coworkers, with our business. It brings this gorgeous element, this keystone of just like passion unfolded, like we trust ourselves deeply, we accept who we are, and we're willing to take risks and know we'll be okay. Having our own back, creating our own rules, which I love. You guys like, yeah, we really don't have any rules here. We can just say what we want to say. And I love that. But I love the idea of redefining our rules, because I grew up with lots of rules and, you know, I turned out okay, but I realized that now is the time that we get to redefine what those are. And I believe they're all unique to each of us in order for us to show up the version of our true authenticity.
Looks like Blueberry has made an appearance. He is
It
approving
is.
of this
Blueberry
conversation.
I've never met Blueberry.
And he doesn't want to go away. And I am.
He just loves the energy
She's
that
all
we got
doing
going
it.
on here.
He does.
Yes, he does. My first experience with radical self-love was several years ago, when I was teaching I was doing a beta version of my body image boot camp that was all very much about self-love and self-acceptance. And I learned a phrase from someone who really, it just like totally just embodies radical self-love. And it's, so what if I am, right? And I was like, when you think I'm not perfect, I don't have this, I'm not like her, I don't look like that, I'm this, I'm that. And it's literally was like, so what if I am? So what? Right? And literally that was like this phrase that I carried with me through my own journey of, because what I learned was, and this is something that I'm like writing a chapter in an anthology. And so I'm having to like revisit and kind of like go, oh my goodness, right? Like you have all of those hindsight moments that I seem to teach the thing that I need the most, right? I seem to create the thing that I need in my life. And so teaching body love and body image and body positivity and all of that stuff was the thing that I was confronting my own stuff still, even after I thought I had turned off the self-hate. And it really forced me to dig a little deeper and confront some of the things that I was still wrestling with. And so that learning that phrase really just helped me kind of move through it, not over it, but to move through it and really say, so what if I'm not perfect? Like, why do I have to be perfect?
And what is perfect anyway? Who defines that perfect? I'm just curious.
It doesn't even exist. It honestly doesn't exist, but it's this thing that we tell ourselves that if it's not perfect, then I can't do XYZ if it's not perfect. I can't wear XYZ if my body's not perfect. And I tell people, take perfect off the table. Like it doesn't exist. Take it off the table. It's not something that I even want you to strive for. I don't want you to strive for perfect. I want you to strive for done, right? Done is better than perfect, right? And we get stuck in this cycle of it has to be perfect before I can launch my program. It has to be perfect before I launch my website. It has to be perfect before I post this picture. No. I'm like, no.
It's a huge paralyzer, right?
Yes.
And I think, with that radical self-love of accepting ourselves as we are. And, actually, I kind of really uncovered this during quarantine. One of the things that I was going through, when I had my chiropractic business, I noticed over the time of talking about body image, I gained 10 pounds. And I judged myself because those 10 pounds ended up like it was a love-hate relationship. It became conditional loving, right? I can only be accepting of myself if I am really, really, really disciplined with what I eat and everything else. And then I layered more judgment. I'm like, yeah, but I'm a healthy weight. I shouldn't be feeling this way. Something's wrong with me. Like I should be grateful for what I have. Right. So it just brought this whole storm until I decided I was going to I decided a protocol I was going to do when nobody was looking. So nobody had to give me feedback and tell me I was doing it right or wrong, because my default in the past was look for approval, right? And people pleasing. And so I decided I was going to do it for my body, for me, partially because I couldn't sleep and I was having night sweats. I'm like, what in the hell is happening? I'm in my early 40s. Why am I getting perimenopausal symptoms? And it was supposed to help with that, right? I ended up losing almost 20 pounds. And of course, my brain was like, oh my God, I'm going to get, I'm not going to look unhealthy. I'm over 40. Like, is that terrible? Is somebody going to tell me? And all the things, and, all the storm of thoughts and judgments. But before I even did that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to honor this body I have in this moment. This body allowed me to have 2 babies and breastfeed them for over a year each. Like, holy shit, that's pretty fucking awesome. How about we celebrate that? This body, I can get out of bed every morning and I can walk and I can go and drive my car and I can see Zoom and figure out, my brain works enough so I can figure out some of this technology that has been very elusive at times, right? Like starting to appreciate it. And then it was so much easier to dive into choosing these things to help myself. And then I realized how I was shaming myself in my business, because I went from a chiropractic business making multiple 6 figures in it to like nothing, starting over again right away in my coaching business, thinking I'm supposed to pick up where I left off, and then shaming myself the whole process. Even though I was helping people along the way, it still wasn't enough. I wasn't at that level, so clearly. And so I have really kind of taken a step back. On the flip side too, I also recognized I went from having my practice, my husband getting sick, passing away a year later. 3 months later, I meet my new husband. We get married a year later. My stepson comes to live with us. So all of a sudden I have 3 teenage boys, and I sold my chiropractic business and jumped right into coaching. And I invested into a very high level, intense mastermind right away. I just realized now, I'm like, maybe we needed to take a pause to just give some grace and gentleness and love. And that was really what I felt like this past year has been a deep dive study on.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. I think,
Sure.
For lots of people, myself included, Elaine, we've had multiple conversations this past year where lots of people have had to take that pause, whether that was, well, the whole world literally took a pause. Whether or not you let that last for 1 month or 10 months, right, is the question. So how can women, or even our listeners, how can we get back into the groove of moving again and loving ourselves again and focusing on our business again? What kind of advice would you have? Because I know that you help women with this transformation all the time. So maybe you could share a little bit of advice on that.
I think one of the biggest things is honoring our own rhythm. So here's something that I was just talking to my own mastermind group of women last week. We were talking about honoring our rhythm, because so often we think we have to follow somebody else's template of what is appropriate for a business. Well, if we've decided to be entrepreneurs, we just decided that we're going to do it our way, which I think is so freaking badass. However, we still have the mindset that we're supposed to do it somebody else's way. At least that has been my experience, and I've seen that over and over again. In fact, one of my clients, I am so freaking proud of her. Her and her colleagues, they started a brewery this past year. She decided she's going to make this amazing brewery, and she's going to take a week of vacation every month.
Good for her.
And she has been doing it and growing a business. Now, she's been super intentional. We've worked on the mindset, but the point of it is, like, who does that, right? Like, talk about breaking all the rules. And I'm just like, oh my God, she, like, just talk about brass ovaries. She's so badass. But the point of it being is like deciding when, like, hey, I'm done at 3, rather than I have to work till 5. I have to make sure if I do this. I mean, how creative are we when we're forcing something? So when we're feeling forced, and I've noticed too, at this stage, the deep dive I go in with my clients and with the energy that we're experiencing, I can't do that with many, many people all at once. I need to give myself grace and space, and give myself grace and space to recover, and give myself permission to go read a book or go take a nap and listening. So something that I recommend for women is ask yourself, does this feel loving? What does this feel aligned? If it feels like you're forcing, I would say that's a caution flag to just check yourself. Like, what's coming up? Oftentimes too, as women, this is something I also I'm proud of, and it sounds kind of weird, but I hold a space that most people cry at some point in my coaching, or more than once, multiple times. And I love that, because they feel safe enough to emote. And as women, so often we think we're not supposed to feel stuff, or we try to avoid that. And when we're not willing to look at the things we're avoiding, I believe it hamstrings us, and we're not allowing ourselves to be seen in our vulnerability. I'm not saying we have to go and like tell the whole world, but finding those safe, sacred spaces to release that so that we can bring that into the business. So in the mornings, oftentimes I cry, whether it's in gratitude, whether it's grief. You know, I'm that grief process I have with my late husband is an ongoing thing, and I love to give it space, and it feels healthy. Now, when it doesn't feel healthy, when we lay our judgment, like I shouldn't feel that way, I shouldn't feel tired, I shouldn't be so far behind. Oh my God, I hear this all the time. I'm so behind
Yeah.
on my goals. Yeah, well, honey, you're right where you're meant to be in this moment. Give yourself some
Yes.
fucking grace. Enough already. Enough already. You're just playing small when
Yeah.
you do that. You are not small. None
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
That I feel like that
Exactly.
has been a theme that I have been saying on repeat
Yeah.
is that stop saying that you're behind. You're not behind. You're right where you are supposed to be, right? But we get into this thing of if I take a day off, then I'm going to be behind. I'm going to get behind. It's like behind from who? Like, who are you in competition with? Like, it's not a race. It's a journey. And it doesn't matter like how quickly you get to the finish line. It's not a race. It's not a
No.
race.
And you know what? This is the other reason why I get extremely passionate about this. My late husband, Josh, was an amazing man, but he was a workaholic. And he developed, I mean, he was a marathon runner, like all this stuff. He looked the epitome of health and literally got stage 4 cancer like overnight. And within 10 and a half months was gone. And one of the things he said near the end of his life, he's like, I wish I didn't work so hard.
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't done that as much. And I know I had elements of that too. When I started my chiropractic business, you know, I worked 3 days a week, but they were long days. And then I was running my 2 very small children that were 2 and 5 all over the place. I was trying to do all the things, run the house, mow the lawn, like everything, because my husband worked almost an hour away and really couldn't contribute in it. So I was doing all the hats without asking for help because we thought that was bad, which by the way, I did a podcast on saying self-love. Accepting support can be an act of self-love.
Yes.
For the record, right? And at the end of that first year, I had acute appendicitis and it ruptured. Thankfully, I didn't go septic and die because I'm sitting here talking to you lovely ladies. But the point of it being was because I kept pushing myself, forcing it, not giving myself grace and space and rest. I didn't even know that was possible. I thought massive action. That almost triggers me now when I see it. I'm all about, you know, taking intentional action and movement, but there's very different energetic intentionality when we're just massive action. We do it all over the place and we just leak energy everywhere. And there's no space for that rest and rejuvenation so we can create amazing shifts.
So you're triggered by massive action. I'm triggered by
Personally.
Jackson. I'm like, my girlfriend Rhonda will say, okay, Miss Action Jackson, pump the brakes. Right?
I love that. Yeah.
Because you get so wrapped up in, like, I'm a massive action person. Absolutely. However, I say that everything has to be intentional.
Yeah.
All of my messaging says that. I truly believe that wholeheartedly, because people will take action, but are they actually taking the right action? Or are they taking the action that's actually going to move the needle? Just to be busy serves no one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's so seductive, right?
Yes,
it's like seduces. Like we have to, because our society celebrates action.
Yeah.
I decided last year I'm going to stop using the word busy in my vocabulary.
Yeah. And see, and I don't even know that our society celebrates action. I think our society celebrates busyness, because a lot of times the distinction for me is when you're busy and you say you have all these things on your to-do list, but it's not actually getting you any sort of outcome, that's being busy. But if you're taking, you know, like deliberate, intentional action towards something, that's something different. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate when, and I hate to use the word hate, but I hate when people are just like, oh, I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah. And also, you know, and then I say, okay, so what's on your calendar? Because I am a calendar girl, hands down.
So that's your rhythm that works for you.
But
I love
that is the rhythm that works for me.
Right.
And but other people are just like, oh, my calendar is just crazy. And then, you know, you have deeper conversations with them and you find out they don't have boundaries. They're doing all these other things. They can't say no. They're yes people. You know, there are all these other factors that play a role into making your life intentional, which leads us to one of the questions that we have on our podcast, which is creating a life by design, right?
Yeah.
And not by default, which is the name of the podcast, which is what we prescribe to. Can you share with us a little bit about how you have created your life by design and not default?
Yeah. Yeah, I think before it was definitely by default of thinking this is what I am supposed to be doing, right? Like just based on we absorb the templates from our mentors, our parents, you know, people we admire and thinking that's what we're supposed to be doing. And what I have really intentionally done, especially since my husband Paul and I got married, you know, we kind of joke-ish that we got a do-over. Um, that you know we get to come together and we get to intentionally be engaged in our marriage, you know, so every morning we have our cuddle time before we go out and you know into the day. And I used to like I had to go do my workout at 6 o'clock and you know have my intense workout, you know, Monday through Friday, which I have now actually tweaking. That's the other thing by intention is, or you know, by design is it's not set in stone. We get to redefine it. And each day sometimes looks a little different. And I notice some days my body doesn't need a hard workout. Sometimes my body just wants a walk or to stretch. And then I give myself space to like meditate. I give myself a lot of white space, which used to freak me out big time because I'm like, I need all the things. But now I have developed so much more self-trust that I know I'm uncovering. I sit and I allow myself to emote. Like I know I'm working on my own healing and patterns. I give myself lots of space in the morning before, so I have a clean slate. So when I go to coach my clients, I am totally there for their space and like totally connected without all like my filters are cleaned out, if you will. And so it feels so intentional. So I ask myself too, as I am creating a new project, I'm like, all right, what is required of me today? And I just kind of listen for the answer versus, okay, here's my 20 things I got to check the box off of. There might be 10 things, but they're coming from that place of intentionality versus I just have to do stuff. So at the end of the day, I feel like I did something, which of course we never feel like we did anything if it's not coming from a truly intentional space, an aligned space where it feels aligned. And so I just allow that to go forward, and then giving myself like that grace when it doesn't go to plan. And when it doesn't like show up. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, because what is perfect? But it's been an evolutionary process, you know, with the exercising, feeding my body, walking, enjoying and experiencing stillness, which for us type A high achieving women, stillness is like, oh, I'd rather put hot tigers in my eyes. Like, oh, that's too much. And I have been kind of retraining myself, leaning into it and allowing that and giving myself a lot of that space for that. And then I create some of my time for just coaching and then some time for just working on my podcast. Or when I get like kind of an intuitive download, I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to go up to the spa and I'm going to just give myself a celebration on and have a chocolate facial, you know? So, it's really giving permission, because in the past I'm like, well, that's not allowed. Oh my gosh, like I need to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, do I really? And so now I don't have lots of things I have to do. I just do the things that really feel aligned and I don't feel hurried anymore. That is so wonderful.
That's really, really, I resonate with that a lot. I broke up with the
So
word
glad.
busy, like we broke up.
Yeah.
I broke up.
Done.
And one
Love
of
it.
the things that I really struggled with was that people's perception of me was that I was too busy. I was too busy to make time for them. I was too busy to be invited to the party because they assumed that I was too busy and without giving me the choice. And I said, you know what? That is not how I want to live. People look at me and have this idea that I work 24 hours a day because how do you get all that stuff done? How are you? And I'm like, I'm just very intentional. I'm very strategic and I'm quick at the things that I can do. Once I have my plan in place, once I know what I'm supposed to be doing and I get it done and it's over and it's like, okay, on to the next. And I agree with you that having white space in my calendar was like, I don't know, what do I do now? Like,
Right.
I don't know what to do with myself because we program ourselves to be busy. And if we're not busy, it means we're not being successful. And if we're not busy, it means we're not achieving our goals. And I realized that I needed that white space so that I could think about the things that I really wanted to do and what I really wanted to focus on. And I realized that having intentional white space, actually, at first it was uncomfortable because I need background noise. I need to be busy. That's like what I thought I needed, because otherwise I can't control the voices in my head and all the pop rocks coming through. So I was using noise and busyness as a way to shut out the constant streaming of plates spinning in my head of all the ideas and the $1 million ideas that I have. And I was like, I need to now I've figured out how to let it stop it. And if I have one, I write it down and I say, I talk to Paige, I talk it out, buddy. Is this idea worth pursuing, or is this maybe later? I was just about
to say, I'm like, that's your Enneagram 3 talking.
Oh girl, right? It's ridiculous.
And one of the things that I will say, Elaine, has come really far in the last 2 years that we've been we started off, we met at a conference, we started to be friends, then we were accountability partners, now we're business besties. But one of the things that I've seen that she is a master at is she does the things that she does well, very, very well. And the other things she delegates and hires out. And I think that a lot of people don't do that. They think that they have to do all the things all the time. And it's like, yeah, no, you don't have to do that. It's, and it's a journey and a progression with learning that and being able to accept that. Like me, art, any sort of anything like camp, any of that, please. I draw hangman people, right?
I'm with you, Paige.
I am just like, I will hire that out in a heartbeat. Or if I need something set up or laid out, I'm like, Elaine, can you take a look at this? It's just, I'll just do it for you because what you have is crap right now, Paige. And so
love truth tellers.
Yeah, total truth tellers. But the whole point is that know what your strengths are and compensate for your weaknesses by hiring someone else who that is their forte, and then you can be of service to each other. And so
zone of genius, that's what I call it.
Well, I think that's such a powerful thing, right? Again, like I said, this podcast title I had was receiving support as an act of self-love or asking for it. One of the things, some of the women in my mastermind, one is my financial advisor. I'm like, I want to coach my financial advisor because I want these women to be growth minded and all the things. And it's so freaking cool to that's her zone of genius. I'm like, help me understand my money and how to be empowered in it, because I'm like, it's, hasn't been my thing. Or, somebody else in social media, I tried to do the things and I was like, oh, this isn't really my thing. I'd rather delegate that. I have great ideas, but yeah, somebody else. And I'm like, but that's the tapestry of how we are designed to work together. And ladies, I'm like, you guys, you're epitome of collaboration, and you can tell the love that you guys have for each other. It's beautiful. And because of that, it just gets exuded. And I feel like that helps heal our world and shows what's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did not tell her to wear a striped shirt today, so I know
we're all like, what the hell? Our black and white theme going on over here.
And then just the other day, we both wore a shirt that was designed by one of our clients and a friend of ours, and I had the gray one on, and she had the pink one on, and we wore it at the same time. And the person was just like, "Oh my God, you guys look so great in my shirt!" And we're like, "What?" We're like, "Oh my gosh, we both have your shirt on today." So, it's about finding those partners and finding those, the other people that you can support and encourage. And like your shirt says, empowered women empower women. Yes. It is so true on so many different levels, Yep. So I don't know. Elaine, do you have another question?
I could talk about this all day.
Oh, I know.
I need to.
Yeah. I can talk about this all day long. So the next question we ask everyone is if you have a motto that you live by. So Paige sticks with the same motto. Mine changes every conversation. But Paige, tell us what your motto is.
So my motto is I deserve to be here. I've worked really hard. I've had some hiccups and some challenges, but I've had a hell of a lot of successes. And where I am right now in the moment, whatever level, is exactly where I should be, and where I, all the work that I've done is, but I deserve to be right in the moment, right where I am right now. So that is my motto. And so, Dr. Angela, what is your motto before we ask what Elaine's is?
Well, I think that's, I'm kind of more like Elaine, like every other day it's changing as I just go deeper and deeper. But really I love my wholeness, my authentic wholeness, and giving myself that permission. I was just in Florida last month, and my photographer decided to do a spontaneous photo shoot on this hot Camaro that I had decided to rent. And here I am in like a strapless top, like high heels, all the things. And I'm like, oh my God, here I'm a 44-year-old mother, on the hood of this car, like with bedroom eyes. And it was like, oh my God, that's me and my freedom. And it felt so freeing to be like, you know what, who cares? Like being free and being whole in all of our facets.
That's embracing your white snake video, girl.
Oh my God, it scared me.
That's one of my favorite bands. So for those of you who don't know, White Snake,
That's
here I go again. That is
You have to see
actually
that picture.
I know, she look at Elaine is like totally laughing. It is
That's
like
awesome.
Love it. Oh.
Yeah, so we had a White Snake video shoot, and it felt, for at least for me, coming up from a very conservative, I must like kind of stifle and diminish.
Yeah.
It felt like a coming out, if you will, in a way that I would never have expressed before. And what was so fun is the women that were there started doing more themselves, and that is what gets me all fired up.
And so when you can demonstrate that it's okay to be who you are,
and you don't die,
and you don't, nobody died, right?
Nobody died. We all lived.
Also, I think one of the things that's important is that we stop judging other people's judgments, right? Stop, like, we think, oh man, what will people think? So we're judging them for judging us, but we don't even know that they're going to judge us. We're assuming they're going to judge us, and it turns into this whole spiral.
But the reality is
the thing, because people are going to judge me, and they're going to say this, and what are they going to say? Blah, 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 blah. Who the fuck cares?
Who the fuck? And when we think other people are thinking, what we think they are thinking about us is really us judging ourselves.
And it's not our business to know what they think of us. Like, who cares? I don't care what you think of me.
That's their work. As one of my clients, she's like, I don't have to own that shit. I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
Just your own. You just get to own your own shit. Nobody else's.
Right. And I'm not going to allow someone else to put their insecurities and project them onto me because they're not brave enough or have the, the confidence. I'm not going to let them put their shit onto me. That's your
have the bigger energy. You get to have the bigger energy.
Yeah.
Your motto, Elaine.
I'm going to draw from my affirmation card deck here.
Is that how it works?
Literally.
I love it.
I did this the other day.
Which deck is that one?
Oh, it's
her own.
It's her own. Okay.
Well, some of them. Okay. So there was a polka dot sister that had designed these affirmation decks, and her and I designed one together around body image. And this was like several years ago. And so I have, and they're all profanity.
Perfect.
So, all right, here we go. This one. Ooh, this is a good one. This is my quote. This is a quote that I came up with. I don't need to change my body. I just need to change my fucking mindset. Boom, right? Boom. Mic drop. So yeah, I used to struggle a lot with body image and stuff like that. And when you were talking about how you had gained weight, I actually, this is really interesting. I was talking about, I kind of was, you have those like, oh shit moments. I had one the other day when I realized that my husband and I were in this weight loss program that most chiropractors distribute, the Ideal Protein, right? My husband and I did Ideal Protein. We lost a bunch of weight, and people started, when I would see people, all they would talk about is, oh my God, you look so amazing. You've lost so much weight. And I did not like that. I was like, I didn't give you permission to comment on my body. Like, talk about my hair, talk about my dress, talk about the decorations, the way I choose to decorate myself. So I subconsciously gained back all the weight plus some, so that now people do not comment on my body.
Interesting.
Got some shit in it, right? And so coming to that realization was like, oh, I sabotaged my health because I did not want the attention. I did not want any of that. And then I went back even further and I was like, okay, this is where it comes from. I believe it's all childhood stuff, right? When I was 5 years old, my shirt caught on fire. So I have a scar on my chest and my arm, which is, I have tattoos, but it was, I didn't want people looking at me. I didn't want to bring attention to myself because I was afraid of people's judgments and that they were going to say something hurtful or ask questions that in a really hurtful way. I had this thing that people would point and scream, "Oh my God, you're such a freak." Like I literally thought that until the day I decided to go to the mall wearing a baby doll strap, and my husband was like, "Oh shit, she's not wearing a sweater. What the hell's going on here?" Right. It was me deciding to own my power and to not allow. And guess what? Nobody pointed at me. Nobody said shit to me. It was like I had built up this scary scenario in my head that this would happen if I did this, and it didn't happen. But I had to test the theory. I had to go out, and it was like that was the day that everything changed for me. Right. And so, but then it's this constant thing. And so then I'm like, oh my gosh, like I think that I put on weight subconsciously thinking that one, now people won't comment on my body. And number two, it goes back to, I didn't want people to say things about my burn, my scars or anything like that. So what did I do? Put on armor, have a beautiful tattoo, kind of cover some of it. Nobody would ever know. Right. And it was like,
that's huge awareness, but also I honor you too for your willingness to go back that far and check in, right? Because the thing is, when that happens, you're like, clearly something happened, triggered. And I think sometimes we have a tendency to be like, we want to blame those people as if they're supposed to know what to do and all the things and read your mind, right? But how beautiful they triggered you in such a way that now you're ready for that awareness.
Yeah.
And now you get to decide what you want to do with it in a loving way, possibly.
Huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of self-awareness. I feel like if you don't have the awareness, how will you ever change or grow or evolve? You have to be able to sit down and really get real and honest with yourself and say, oh, this is coming up. I wonder why, and trace it back. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do the work. I mean, Elaine and I both, she knows, huge fans of self-awareness, and not only being self-aware, but actually doing the work or rewriting the story, so that it makes a more of a positive impact on you and not keep having that old tape run over and over in your head, or you elaborate it in a way that goes off the rails. Right. I think that is so, so important. Now, Dr. Angela, we could be here forever, but I would love for our listeners to learn more about where they can find out more about you and your programs and your masterminds and retreats that you have across the country. So if you could just share where everyone can find you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. I think the best place is just on my Instagram. It's Dr. Angela Marick, Marick. I am giving it life. I just hired somebody to help me with that so that she can help me put my message and amplify the things that I just absolutely love. I also have a podcast called Becoming You. And it's just, talking about mindset and supporting women leaders and things like that. So those are two of the best spaces to connect. And on my Instagram, there's like links to how to connect and have conversations as well. So that's what I would recommend.
I love that because I am an Instagram freak.
I am learning with help. That's awesome, Paige. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I am literally an Instagram freak, and I love that you are on there. So I look forward to interacting with you on Instagram because that is where I live. So yay, this is good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us today and share some of your knowledge and all your little nuggets that you were sharing with us.
It's my pleasure.
So appreciate it.
Oh, well, I appreciate you too for being willing to come together and to do your own work to be able to share this. It's not it's not easy for us to look at our own truths and our own challenges. Yes, we talk about doing the work, but sometimes we're scared to death of the work because we're
Yeah.
afraid of what shit's going to come up. And I just,
Mhm.
if nothing else, want to offer this to your listeners is like, offer yourself grace and compassion, just like you would a friend, as you do the work, as you investigate, and just know that you are okay, your core always.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much. It was so wonderful
My
to spend the
pleasure.
morning with you. Got me all fired up over here. So now I gotta go
Empowered women.
do something with this energy.
Yes.
I love it.
And thank you. Take care. And don't forget, Dr. Angela has a shirt on that says empowered women empower women. So take care, everyone.